It usually starts at 3 a.m. You don't hear it at first because you're sleeping, probably dreaming about a life where you aren't drowning in debt. But then comes the sound, the grinding of metal, the hiss of hydraulics, and the distinct rumble of a diesel engine idling in your driveway. By the time you run to the window, it's already too late. Your lifeline, your way to get to work, your status symbol is being dragged down the street by a repo truck. This scene is playing out not just in poor neighborhoods, but in affluent suburbs, in gated communities, and in the driveways of people who pretend to be middle class but are actually financially insolvent. We are witnessing a silent massacre of the American consumer, and the numbers coming out of the Federal Reserve are terrifying. According to the latest data, auto loan delinquencies have officially surged past the peak of the 2008 Great Financial Crisis. Let that sink in for a second. We are seeing more people defaulting on their car payments right now than we did when the entire global housing market collapsed and unemployment hit double digits. But here is the savage truth that nobody on the news wants to say out loud. Back in 2008, people stopped paying their mortgage because they lost their jobs. In 2025, people are stopping paying their car loans because they were stupid enough to sign a contract for a depreciating asset that costs more than their rent. We have normalized financial suicide in this country, and the bill has finally come due. The Subprime Auto Bubble has officially popped. For the last 5 years, Americans have been treating cars like appreciating assets, convinced by slick dealership salesmen and predatory lenders that paying $1,000 a month for a Ford F-150 while making $45,000 a year was a sound financial decision. It wasn't. It was math that never worked. And now, as inflation eats away at grocery budgets and rent prices stay sticky, the average American is looking at their driveway and realizing they are driving a financial coffin. The scary part isn't just that people are losing their cars. It's that the entire banking system is leveraged to the hilt on these loans. Wall Street took a look at the housing crash of 2008 and said, "Let's do that again, but with cars." And just like last time, they built a house of cards that is currently catching fire. The delinquency rate hitting 6.6% isn't just a statistic. It is a siren screaming that the consumer is broke, the banks are lying, and the repo man is currently the busiest employee in America. To understand how we got to a point where millions of Americans are walking away from their vehicles, you have to look at the crime scene, the dealership finance office. This is where the robbery happens, but it's legal, and you sign for it with a smile. The average new car payment in the United States has hovered near $750, with millions of people paying over $1,000 a month. How did we get here? Did Americans suddenly become rich? No, we just started financing cars for longer than the cars actually last. The 84-month loan, 7 years of payments, has become the new standard. There are even 96-month loans now. Think about the absurdity of that. You are paying interest on a car that will likely need a new transmission before you even own the title. This created a phenomenon, negative equity, or being underwater. This is the savage part where we have to roast the consumer a little bit. Millions of people traded in a car they still owed money on, rolled that debt into a new loan, and drove off the lot owing $60,000 on a truck worth $40,000 the second it touched the pavement. This is a Ponzi scheme of debt, and the consumer is the victim and the willing participant. Dealerships call this rolling negative equity, but it should be called financial slavery. You have people driving around in Dodge Chargers and luxury SUVs who are technically bankrupt, but as long as the bank kept approving the loan, nobody asked questions. But now the music has stopped. Interest rates are no longer zero. That same loan that used to cost 3% is now costing 9%, 10%, or for subprime borrowers, a criminal 25%. When you combine a $50,000 principal with a 14% interest rate over 7 years, you end up paying double for the car. And the moment the economy tightened, the moment overtime hours got cut, or the moment rent went up by $200, the math broke. The pavement princess trucks and the luxury sedans are the first things to go. Lenders are realizing that they extended credit to people with credit scores lower than their room temperature, banking on the idea that Americans always pay their car note first so they can get to work. That old rule is dead. In the gig economy, if the Uber Eats delivery doesn't cover the car note, the driver just stops paying. The dealership euphoria of 2021 and 2022 was a hallucination fueled by stimulus checks and stupidity. And now we are waking up with the worst hangover in economic history. If you think this is just a problem for the guy down the street losing his pickup truck, you are missing the bigger picture. This is a banking crisis disguised as a car problem. Just like in 2008, when banks bundled garbage mortgage into bonds and sold them to pension funds. They have been doing the exact same thing with auto loans. They call them auto asset-backed securities, or ABS. Wall Street has been packaging these predatory subprime loans into shiny investment products and selling them to investors who are desperate for yield. They took the debt of a guy who has defaulted on 3 credit cards and wrapped it in a bow, stamping it AAAA. This is where the Big Short 2.0 comes into play. Major banks like Wells Fargo, Ally Financial, and Capital One are sitting on billions of dollars of auto debt. As delinquencies skyrocket, the value of these bonds is crashing. But here is the twist that makes this worse than 2008. The collateral is disappearing. When a house gets foreclosed on, the house is still there. It might need a coat of paint, but it's an asset. When a car gets repossessed today, it is often a depreciating piece of junk that has been driven into the ground. Maintenance has been ignored because the owner was broke, and the market value has plummeted by 40%. The recovery rate for banks on these repossessions is collapsing. They are getting pennies on the dollar. We are seeing a massive tightening of credit because of this. Lenders are terrified. This is why it's suddenly getting harder to get a loan. They know the books are cooked. They know that millions of performing loans are just one missed paycheck away from default. This creates a credit crunch. When banks stop lending for cars, people stop buying cars. When people stop buying cars, the auto industry, which supports millions of jobs, grinds to a halt. It is a contagion effect. And let's be honest, the banks deserve this. They enabled the financial illiteracy of the American consumer. They handed the keys to a $70,000 vehicle to a part-time barista and called it prime lending. Now, as the defaults roll in, they are going to go to the Federal Reserve asking for a bailout, claiming nobody could have seen this coming. But we saw it coming. Anyone with a calculator saw it coming. The physical reality of this crash is visible from space. If you look at satellite imagery of repo lots and auction houses across the country, they are overflowing. They are quite literally running out of space to park the cars they are stealing back from broke Americans. Manheim, the largest wholesale auto auction in the world, is reporting inventory levels that are physically unmanageable. This creates a supply shock. When you flood the market with millions of repossessed cars, the price of used cars crashes. This sounds good for buyers, but it destroys the people who still own cars. Your car's value drops, putting you further underwater on your loan, which makes you more likely to default. It is a death spiral. But the most savage part of this story is the rise of the ghost car. Americans are realizing that the repo man is coming, and they are fighting back. We are seeing a massive increase in people hiding their vehicles. They are packing them in friends' garages, swapping license plates, and physically disabling the GPS trackers that lenders install on subprime cars. There is a game of cat and mouse happening across the country. Lenders are now using license plate recognition cameras and even AI to track down these vehicles. But you can't repossess a car you can't find. This shadow inventory means the delinquency numbers are actually worse than reported. Banks list these loans as delinquent, but they haven't written them off yet because they haven't seized the asset. This is hiding billions in losses. Furthermore, the condition of the cars that are being recovered is horrific. We are talking about financial vandalism. People who know they are losing their car are stripping parts, slashing tires, or simply refusing to change the oil for 30,000 miles. By the time the bank gets the car back, it's worth nothing. The auction lanes are full of cars that look nice on the outside, but are mechanically towed on the inside. This is the ultimate screw you from the consumer to the bank, but ultimately, it just accelerates the collapse of the used car market prices, ensuring that the next wave of defaults happens even faster. So, what happens when the wheels fall off the economy? The auto loan crisis is the canary in the coal mine. It is the first major crack in the strong consumer narrative that the government has been pushing. If people cannot afford their cars, they cannot afford their lives. The ripple effects will tear through the economy in 2026. Auto manufacturers like Ford and GM are already seeing inventory pile up on dealer lots because nobody can afford the financing. They will be forced to cut production. Cutting production means firing workers. Firing workers means more defaults. It is the classic boom and bust cycle, but this time, it is fueled by 84-month terms and unparalleled arrogance. For you, the viewer, this is a warning. The window to exit this burning building is closing. If you are one of the millions of Americans driving a car you can't afford, praying that nothing breaks, you are playing Russian roulette with your financial future. The banks are preparing for impact. They are hoarding cash and tightening standards. The easy money era is dead and buried. Used car prices are going to collapse, which is great if you have cash, but a disaster if you have debt. We are watching the great American auto collapse in real time. The repo trucks are running 24/7. The auction lots are full, and the banks are lying about their solvency. The narrative that this time is different was a lie. It's exactly like 2008, just with different collateral. Instead of empty houses, we have repo lots full of Chargers and F-150s. The math always wins in the end. The artificial prosperity funded by debt has evaporated, and we are left with the cold, hard reality of a broke nation. Don't let yourself become a statistic on a repo man's spreadsheet. The crash isn't coming. It's already here, parked in your driveway, waiting for the tow truck to arrive.